Welcome back to another message crawler update. Today I want to talk about processing profiles and what I'm thinking version 7 should do. So let's go to my screen and I'll show you what I've been working on. Alright, so we have message crawler here and we're going to go to profile section and we will go to processing profiles here. And what I have here is different number of ways we can process our data as we ingest it into the application. So in version 6, this process was pretty simple. Just get the basic metadata and stuff like that, and that's it. But in this version, we can do more things to our data. So here are some presets that I've created, and I'll probably make more. So for example, directory list. Let's say you just want to have an inventory of files that you want to filter for a particular date or something like that, and then just either send to a client or copy over to a new folder. You can select this profile called directory list. And this is the most basic profile. It's going to be the quickest. It just makes a dir list. Another one is a short message. So this is the profile that you would most likely use when you load in short messages into message crawler. And then the full processing is sort of the most complete. That will do as much as possible. So let's talk about what it'll do and why. So I'm going to open the profile and we have lots of stuff going on. A number of things are self-explanatory, but I'm going to talk about the interesting ones. All right, so one of the things that people have been asking me to add to message crawler is really good searching capability. They wanted to not just filter by the message body, they wanted to like properly search their data before they figure out what data set needs to go into a review platform. And that's one of the things I wanted to attempt to do with version 7 is to add text extraction. Right, so we're going to extract text from like email bodies, but also from Office type documents, and we can even OCR and things like that. So I'll get to it. But that's generally the idea behind this processing profile. We want to maximize the work we do with our data so we can extract text metadata and everything. And this way we don't have to load too much data into review. That's where I'm going with this. We'll see how it works out. So let's talk about some of the options here that I've set up that are not self-explanatory and that you should know about, especially if you're trying this beta version. One thing I added here is time zone. So normally when we process in whatever processing tool, we just specify what time zone we want data to be. However, here we have two options. We have original data time zone and process in. That is because not all data comes in UTC time zone. Sometimes you get data that's been exported into whatever local time zone you have, and you may not want that. So this is why you have an option to say my data is in this time zone and I want it to be ingested in this time zone. Usually it's going to be UTC. The biggest offenders here are WhatsApp, and I think there are a couple of others that don't export their data in UTC. I do recommend you always process into UTC time zone, and then when you process data in your review tool, then you select your processing time zone. But there are other ways, everyone's got their workflow, so it's just an option. So let's talk about what else here that is interesting. Crash recovery. So one thing I realized that every software everywhere does is it crashes, right? And I expect message crawler to do that occasionally. So what I added an option called crash recovery. So if you have a job that crashed and you're going to run that job again, if the data was already loaded, it's just going to skip those messages. It'll use kind of like a physical hashing to figure out what was loaded and what was not. Data has to be in a same job. So if you create a new job, that will not do physical deduplication, and crash recovery, it considers it to be a new import. But if you take the same job and you reset it, clear out all your tasks and run it again, it's going to check if data was loaded or not. Process data after import, that means do all the stuff on the bottom. Large database optimization. Ideally, you would not need this, but what I found is as database grows, it gets slower and slower. And I found ways to optimize for that. However, it makes small databases slower, trade-offs everywhere. So maybe I'll put this as an auto detect in the future or something like that, but right now there is an explicit button for large database optimization. If your database is getting large, do check it off, and that's going to improve performance. What is large? I would say once you go over 1 million records. All right, so now we get into the bottom here and processing options. So what we can do is after data is loaded, we can process email, files, and so on. So we can take action on that data. That means we're going to extract metadata and text. And here in the file handling section, we can specify exactly what we want done. So for example, if we do extract containers, we can say what kind of containers do we want to extract. So email containers or archives. So if we find a zip file, should we extract that zip file and store it as individual messages? And even if you're not doing text extraction, this may be useful because when you put zip file into RSMF and it gets extracted by relativity, it actually looks kind of weird. You get an error message saying zip file is not there, but then the files are part of the family. And that's one of the things I was asked to do is, can I extract all the zip files so they look nice in RSMF? And then same thing, if we come up to an email container, we can expand that out and see what's in there. Other things like extracting text, right? So we can select different file types where we can attempt to find extracted text. The other thing here that's interesting that Message Crawler 6 was already doing is the thumbnail generation. So before it was a separate tool, now it's part of the import. So you can say, okay, if I have any video files or HEIC files, generate thumbnails for those. So when the data gets loaded to relativity, I get a picture of what's there. I don't have to click on an attachment to go into it and start this, the video playing with the people partying and babies eating food or something. You wasted like a bunch of clicks, right? If I see a thumbnail of it, I can just skip it and move on. So that's what that does. And then there are a few other options here, like OCR embedded images. So if you have PDF with the image layer, it'll OCR that and extract that too. Again, the idea is to search as much as possible. And right now, searching does not exist in this version. That's something I'll be working on in the future, like a full text searching with DT search and all that fun stuff. But right now, I'm just trying to get as much text out as possible. All right. And then options here on the bottom, they're going to be fairly application specific, but they're mostly self-explanatory. So, for example, Facebook, this is just gets carried over from version 6. How do we treat links? Do we download linked images for Teams? Things like that. There's some Celebrate options. Again, I'll probably do separate video going over Celebrate, but these are generally self-explanatory, so I don't need to go over those too much. But that is kind of the overview of a processing profile. We can set how much work we want done to our data when we ingest it into Message Crawler, and that will determine how much time you're gonna spend loading data. If you don't need all the extracted text and all that fun stuff, you can just use a regular short message profile. But if you do want text, you can do full processing. And what that'll allow you to do is export a DAT file with links to that text so that you can load RSMF files into relativity without processing. Because one of the reasons to process data in relativity is to get extracted text as well as metadata. And if Message Crawler can do it for you, you don't need to use relativity processing, which is great for people who have relativity but not relativity processing. So that's my update on processing profiles, what I'm thinking, and this is the beta version of Message Crawler 7. If you want to give it a try, contact me and I will send you a private link. Thank you for checking this update. I will see you on another.